reach, God. We just thank you tonight as we go through abandonment and abuse, oh Heavenly Father, God, that we can see things that happen in our life, that we can forgive people or manage the things that we went through, God. We just thank you for this opportunity to heal, restore, and be rebuilt. In Jesus' name, amen. So my definition for abandonment is left without a needed protection, care, or support. Left by owning a state of disuse, no longer held or thought of, for giving up hopes and dreams. And the verses God gave me was Psalms 34:19 amplified. Many hardships and perplexed circumstances confront the righteous, but the Lord rescues him from them all. Psalms 27:10, King James Version. When my father and mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. 1 Peter 5:7, King James Version. Casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Hebrews 4:15, NLT. The high priest of our understanding our weaknesses, for he has faced all the same testings we do, but do not see him. So in abandonment, I chose like seven that to me was the things that we might go through. Abandonment common signs. The first one is emotional instability or insecurity. Facing those now fearing that those that care about us may leave us from family, friends, or emotional relationship. Fear that can lead to heightened anxiety, especially in relationships where there's an emotional vulnerability. They may become constantly worried about being rejected. And this is the one that I deal with most of my life was rejection and only concerned about how other people feel and how other people's behavior change about them. This way hits me hard. And I'll probably talk about mine's later because mine's was layered. My rejection was layered. The other one is fear and commitment. And you can jump in anytime if you want to say something. Fear and commitment. Fear and being hurt or left alone. They can cause us to build walls to avoid deep emotional contacts altogether. Being reluctant to commit to long-term relationships or a tendency to maintain a distance. They may disengage or sabotage. I like that word. Sabotage behavior, such as pushing people away or ending relationship, even without a resolve to protect themselves. That was fearing. You got clingingness or dependency, overwhelming need for constant reassurance or validation from their family, friends, or people to minimize the feeling of feeling low self-esteem or rejected can lead to excessive demand for attention or affection, which may put stress on others. We may have trust issues, having been let down by someone they may depend on. We may become suspicious of people's intentions, consistently fearing betrayal or feeling mistreated. It makes it hard to open up to people or build meaningful relationships. Unhealthy relationship patterns. That's another one that hit me. I talk about this one though. Individuals may find themselves repeatedly in relationships that mimic the dynamics of the original abandonment. They may unconsciously put themselves in repetitive cycles. That's why it's good to take time to seek new relationships. I want to talk about this because when Apostle had us in a rise, do a thing on our life, I could see a pattern in a relationship. It wasn't like an abandonment. It was like a repeated thing that I went through. Every relationship I went in, the person wasn't drinking. I had a drinking problem, but they had a abuse problem. I'm like in like three straight relationships where there was no sign of nothing. And eventually, as we got together, they either had a drug problem or a drinking problem. I would leave that relationship. I didn't take time. I just got into another one. And it's like three times. This over like, all right, I want to do it like this because my relationship was long. 15 years. Well, I chose almost the same person. I didn't see the sign of their addiction. I had my addictions, but I attracted other people that had addictions that I didn't even see. It was a trip. I mimicked this same relationship for 15 years. And I didn't see that till Apostle had me write this thing. So sometimes that's when I put it takes you got to take time in going into another relationship because you will pick that same person without even knowing it. And it was crazy after I wrote that report to her. So I just had to do that one. That it wasn't about abandonment. It was about not taking time to get into a relationship because I would go straight from one to another one without even looking at it. I had to talk about that because it tripped me out. The next one is emotional detachment. We may try to protect ourselves by shutting down, which causes us emotional numbness or detachment as a defense mechanism to avoid feeling offenses at all times. And then my last one is chronic loneliness. And if you want me to, after I get through, I'll repeat these. Chronic loneliness, maybe surrounded by friends, family, but still feel unconnected with others. Loneliness can affect their sense of belonging and make social interactive feel superficial or negative. And this is what God put on my mind. This is about my aunt and my uncle. The loss of a loved one, abandonment is sometimes coming in people that have been married in a long time. My aunt and uncle, I was washing the dishes. My uncle died, and let's talk about chronic loneliness. My uncle died a year before my auntie died. And you could see that loneliness on her. They died almost a year apart. They had been together so long, the loneliness, I guess it just overtook her. But within a year, without him being there, she died. So I can talk about mine now. And then if anybody else, I will do the things again. You got emotional instability, fear and commitment, cleanliness and dependency, trust issues, unhealthy relationship patterns, emotional detachment, and chronic loneliness. Mine was rejection. My mama had me when she was like 15 or 16 years old. My auntie took me from my mama. So I used to have to, when I got in Wisdom Ministries, I started to pray, God, what is really wrong with me? Why do I do what I do? And God revealed to me, you felt rejected from the womb. Your mama had you when you were 16. The boy that she went with abandoned her. So her feelings was messed up. So you took on that weight. And it was amazing why I was like I was, why I didn't associate with a lot of people, why I pulled back so many times. And then when Apostle was praying, we was in the men's group, she brought up things that were laid so dormant that I got jumped on when I was young. So that suppressed some more stuff in my life. So when we was talking on the Papa Done, I had so many layers of rejection, being short. It was so many things that was over me to get off of me. Apostle, though, when I was in at the church that all of us used to go, Amanda and them was there and Paige was there and Apostle. I just came to church and I would just sit behind this pole. because I was just this person that I guess just felt just all alone at so many times and stuff like that. I was so fragile. It took a lot of being around people to even get to where I am now. So it takes time. And God had to work on me. And like I said, and I always will say this, He put me around the women in wisdom and the women in KBI and the people He surrounded me around to pull out the things that were in me. Because there's no possible way, Apostle, no, that I would be on here doing this lesson right now. I was too shy, I was too hurt, but he began to heal me from this rejection. I look at it, I'll tell y'all the story. This how it was so bad for the way I was raised. They love back then they loved you, but they never said they love you. If they took care of you, that mean they love you. I never heard that word, I love you, David. I never heard that word in our family. Me and my brother said now, and I was telling Apostle, and I was telling people on the other thing. 5 years ago, I told my mama I loved her on the phone, and the phone was blank. She could not say I love you back to me. It blew my mind. Can she say it now? Yes, because I repeated saying I loved her. And she had it on her mind. I know I'm going crazy, just saying stuff. She had it on her mind. After they took me from her, she asked her mother on her dying bed, "Did you ever love me?" I said, "Mama, have you lost your mind? They took me from you. And I never asked you that." So that rejection in me, but I went through a lot, but it took people. It took Wisdom Ministry. It took KBI to I guess it was around the women. I guess it was like I needed nurturing. I'm a grown man. I tell everybody when I stopped drinking, and that was my drinking problem. When I stopped drinking, I did not know who I was. I was a grown man, but I was still a boy because I went through so much hurt, not having my father, him not being around, but able to forgive him. I went home. I was 47 years old. I had all these questions to ask them because I was so hurt. I hated that man because he never came and seen me. And when I went home, he asked me, could I cook? And it was like a weight lifted off of me. It was like God saying to me, I needed you to forgive your father so I could start working on your life. When I came back to Tacoma, I had lost everything. My girlfriend left me. And one of my friends picked me up in his car. And he said, it's time to get your life together. He dropped me off at the VA. 2 years later, he died. It was my time. During that process, that's how I met Apostle. Apostle disappeared for like probably 2 or 3 years, and I couldn't get in touch with her. And Karen, one of the persons at Greater Life, gave me a number. And when I called that number, it was Apostle. And from then on, God just started dealing with my rejection, showing me things in my life that I needed to resolve and pray out. Well, this meant a lot to me, and it brought a lot back into my mind, but it shows me my first thing in dealing with my rejection was I had to forgive my dad because I told it that weight. My daughter used to say, Papa, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? But when I let that thing go, God could work on me. But I would go on with it again. I mean, if you're dealing with rejection, you forgive. But it's a lot of things that try to take control of our life. Like I said, being jumped on, being short, And we don't see the meaning of all that stuff in our life. And then it says in the verse, Jesus went through every emotion, everything that we can go through. But with God's help and other people, we can release these things and we ain't got to hold on to it. Is it hard? Yes. Do I still deal with a lot of stuff? Yes. But God worked some stuff out in my life. And now I can love people instead of having all this anger built up in me and stuff like that. So this was a blessing to me on the abandonment part. But I go with it again. You can be emotional instability or insecurity, fear and commitment, clinginess of dependency. You can have trust issues. Like I said, the unhealthy relationship patterns, emotional detachment, and chronic loneliness. So that's my teaching on abandonment. Do anybody have anything to say before I go to the common challenges of abuse? Oh, y'all just thank you.
For sharing that. I was gonna say that when you were talking in the beginning about what abandonment meant, I thought that was really good because the part about left without needed care or support.
Right.
Because I kept saying, I ain't never been, trying to see if this applied to me. And I was saying, I ain't never been abandoned. I was neglected. This is what I was saying when I was listening to you. But then I realized that the type of neglect that happened in my life is considered abandonment. And I didn't know that. So I learned that today. And then when you talked about how it shows up, it explained you in the repeating of the relationships and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was explaining, how people always be like, oh, people found someone like their mom. They married someone like a man would marry someone like their mom, or the women would marry someone like their dad. You know what I'm saying? And whether it be the good, whether it be, the good you saw in your dad or mom, or the bad, that it shows up in your relationships. And then so I had wrote down some similarities between some of the experience I had with my dad, and then how I ended up marrying somebody very similar to my dad. And so I was seeing how that worked in my life. I haven't had a lot of relationships to compare, but I did have a long one and then a marriage to that same person. So I seen how I was repeating some of that. So I appreciated that. Thank you.
Thank you, Late. I took that as when we did the thing in Arise. I never took the time for myself to heal. How could I be in a good relationship when I'm so broken? Even I'm broken now, I'm a new person. I could look at a person there. If I don't see God, we're not even, you can be my friend. But if I don't see, I don't care about your body. I don't care how you look. If I don't see that certain thing, I'm not even going there. It's simple as that there. Plus, she got to meet Apostle. Let me in, Apostle. But yeah,
We couldn't hear you because you were laughing. I couldn't even hear what you were saying.
no, I was just saying, if they even meet somebody, they got to meet you. But now, because sometimes you got to take time, especially when I was like I was in doing all this stuff. You just be there. And when you're in relationships, you got to really look at the person and spend that time and ask the questions. What are you doing and stuff like that? But I didn't. But now,
Wendy has her hand up when you get a chance.
go ahead, Wendy.
No, David. I mean, I could definitely to relate to multiple things that you were talking about and describing, and I think back on it, or even now, when I begin to become aware of the things that I was doing and choosing to do based on hurts and rejection from my, from my past. I call it the crazy cycle, because it's like, in Romans, 7:15, where it says, for what I'm doing, I do not understand, for what I will to do, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. And it was like, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm doing the exact same thing. I know I'm supposed to be doing this, but I was repeating it, repeating it. And so until you become aware, and even when we had the cycles class, on the different cycles that we repeat, and, why are we choosing to do those things over and over again, because I repeated this multiple patterns of my dad, who I despised for a long time, because he, left my mom and had an affair. But then as I went on in life, I was divorced and I've had affairs, and I was repeating the same thing and didn't understand why. So I'm just, yeah, thank you for speaking to that, David.
Late has her hand up.
Okay, now when she said that, that changed. Uh, because I sure wasn't looking at it as me um being like one of my parents. I was looking at it as the other guy. You know what I'm saying? The other person that I was with. But I was just gonna I was just gonna touch on, so that gave me that to think about. I was writing down as she was speaking about the crazy cycle and stuff, and how but before that, when I originally raised my hand, I was just thinking about how when we're in toxic situations, and this may be more going towards the abuse side, that you try to make it make sense. And you kind of like, you're trying to justify it and make it um that it's all going to work out. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that thing right there, though, that prophetess Wendy said about you turning into the person, repeating some of the your parents' behaviors and stuff. That just really got to me, where I lost my whole train of thought on the other comment, though. But yeah, I'm looking forward to breaking these cycles, continuing to break these cycles in my life of um of abuse and abandonment, because it has rolled over into my kids' life, and I want to cut that. I want to stop that right there. You know what I mean? Um and yeah, so that's all.
Okay. If nobody has anything else on the abandonment signs, I'm gonna go to the abuse. And the definition they have for abuse is to insult with hard language, to mislead or misuse, to inflict physical or emotional harm upon a person or thing. Synonyms: manipulation, degrade, criticize, brutalize, oppress, torture, cheating. The common challenges of abuse, they just had four. Abuse is all too common, all too common occurrence in a relationship worldwide. It not only limit to emotional relationship, but shows its face in families, friendship, interaction with strangers. In the USA, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience some kind of abuse that inflict emotional hurt, seen or unseen. And there are four common types of abuse. The first one is physical abuse. A person constantly receives blows to the body, face, or any other cruel physical contact. Stands a high chance of mental and emotional challenges. They may experience anxiety, depression, eating disorder, PTSD, or find themselves restless doing daily activities. That's physical. You got emotional abuse. It can take on many forms. It often is hard to give fitting descriptions for this mistreatment. Emotional abuse occurs when a person is manipulated by a pattern of abuse, words, or controlled behavior. Words can be used to push a person through humiliation tactics to diminish self-esteem and self-worth. This type of abuse can leave the victim feeling wounded, worthless, or even hopeless. Sexual abuse occurs where a person is forced to perform a sexual act against their wishes, which is rape. Other forms of sexual abuse, sharing nude photos without consent, being forced to perform acts or participate in demoralizing forms of intercourse, is assault. Victims of sexual abuse may find it difficult to hold relationship while navigating anger, disbelief, feeling unclean, and may see this is the end, may have thoughts of suicide. Financial abuse is the abuse that seeks to control the person's ability to acquire or maintain economic stability. This one was hard for me because they were talking about financial abuse. It was mostly talking about marriage and partners, misuse of money, controlling funds spent, access to account. So I put bad stewardship, making money your idol, spending unnecessary without a budget. So that's my thing on physical abuse. Does anybody have anything on that?
How does that, in your study, how has these things manifested in being unbound? We see the emotional stuff, we see the repeating cycles, but have you uncovered any ways or thought or have any ways to stop the cycles so that they can have boundaries in these areas?
That's the one thing I didn't see it, Apostle. I didn't see how to set up boundaries in it. That's when I just did it like this. You said if we didn't have the solution, we can bring it to the table and see how we can find solutions to it. So I can go back. Because even in my rejection, because I'm the person that didn't have boundaries. So was I the person that was doing it out of in my abandonment to be a people pleaser? Or was I just trying to, because I didn't see myself as a people pleaser.
I'm sorry for the background noise, but I think that it's important, with any type of situation, I guess, to first recognize, why you're choosing that type of person. And then setting up boundaries based off of that. Like if you recognize XYZ behavior, tell yourself, okay, well, I'm not going to tolerate said behavior. If this person does this behavior after I've said that this is not something that I will tolerate, well, then that's how you start moving away from that type of relationship or whatever the case may be based off of the fact that you're establishing boundaries.
Okay, it's good.
And I think too that you have to know your worth, that you don't deserve to be mistreated badly. Because when I wasn't married, I didn't know my worth. And so I allowed my spouse to treat me badly. Either it was verbal, sexual, and I almost came up to being physical. And I was like, that was all I thought I could have. So that was me.
Well, I got a cycle. So I was talking to you guys about that I want to get a pattern of breaking. I was talking to you guys about breaking those cycles in my kid's life, trying to stop it right there. And then one of my kids called, so I didn't get to hear all of what Apostle said. And as soon as they started telling me their problems, I started eating. Oh, as soon as I'm not kidding you guys, it was automatic. They started telling me what's going on. They were having a flood. There was this, and I'm just like, like trying to go for that as my comfort. It's like automatic thing, you guys. And so my concern is that I'm doing that in all different areas of trying to self-soothe. Um, that's what I'm calling it. But it's just not always food, but a lot of times it is food, but it's flesh stuff. Look at that. There's some rice and gravy on the side of my mouth while I'm talking. But like I said, it's an issue. It's an issue. You know what I'm saying? And I want to break that cycle because I feel like that's what I'm using as a coping mechanism. It's me trying to feed my flesh. I mean, I talk a good game, you know what I'm saying, about, knowing what to do and stuff. But then when it comes down to it, I'll be praying over my food and then I'll be praying while I'm chewing and stuff. You get what I'm saying? But that's always happening. I'm always finding a way to self-soothe and stuff. And when I was a kid, I used to rub blankets or suck my thumb. So I'm just needing another, I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something that God gets the glory out of.
So I feel like that is where you recognize the behavior that's happening at this time. Okay, so this situation is causing me to eat whatever. Okay, well, I'm going to first recognize that I'm doing this. B, evaluate, okay, am I doing this because I'm hungry, or am I doing this because this person is putting me in a situation that's causing me to stress, or whatever the reason is that you eat. And then you have to take a step back and be like, hey, I can't deal with this right now. Like, it's too much for me, and I have too much going on, or whatever the case may be. And then I think that's how you start to establish boundaries. You can't just let people unleash on you or unload their issues or whatever the case may be on you if that's not something that you can handle in that point in time. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with telling a person, hey, I can't deal with this right now.
Go ahead, Des. You have your hand up.
Yeah, when David was talking about he didn't feel like he was a people pleaser, and I think I can relate to feeling that way as well, that I have not felt like I was a people pleaser. However, looking at some of my past relationships, I was allowing my boundaries to be crossed so that I wasn't getting like retaliation or having people say things that were cruel and hurtful to me. I didn't want to deal with them coming at me if I held my boundary or what they thought about me or whatever. So I guess that to me would be in the category of people pleasing for me. So I guess I don't know if that kind of relates to what David was saying as well, that it's just when we allow our boundaries to be crossed and let people do things that we're not comfortable with or say things that we're really not comfortable with because we don't want the backlash. I think that that would fall into the category of people pleasing. For me, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
With all the behaviors, go back, learn to go back, not only do the things Manda said, but remember the fences that you put around your life. So let's take Latae, for example. Her kids call because they have all these issues. Begin to set boundaries about how close you're going to let them in. Where are you going to stop them from getting into a place where they disrupt your house? Because when you begin to eat, That's like you begin to just throw stuff all over your house and it's all disorganized, everything looks a mess. Well, you don't want your house to look a mess. So, what do you do when people start making a mess of your house? You have to do things to stop the people from junking up your house by not allowing them in. So, putting up boundaries, telling them that you can't take it or tabling it or not thinking that you have to solve their problems. Maybe it's going to be that you'll be a listener and not a responder. You're not a fixer. You don't have to fix everything. Doing the things that's required to protect you. Remember, boundaries are about protecting your finances, your emotions, your physical, blah, 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 blah. And so finding out what that violation is and then doing things to protect you. And everyone's going to have different strategies of protection. And what we're trying to show you in this class is how the breakdown happens, but the boundary statements that we worked on is how you fix them. What are the consequences? What can I say to people? Because right now we're suffering the consequences and we don't want to do that any longer. So we can't be afraid to look at them. It's not just a deliverance issue. It's not just breaking cycles, but it's stopping it from continuing so it doesn't continue to build. And so those boundary statements are going to be important for you to protect yourself. It says in the Bible, be above all things, protect your heart. And many times when we just let people throw trash in our house, I'm not going to just let people throw trash in my house. No, you can't come and do that. I have to set that boundary because this is my home. This is my heart. This is my body. This is my ear. So hopefully that helps when, taking into consideration the things we've learned about those boundary statements, looking at your house that we created, the walls that you put around your house. Think about all of those things when you're thinking about the common challenges, abandonment, rejection, fear, all the things that we're going to be talking about with those common boundaries and your boundary type so that you can move to making yourself have healthy boundaries. And that's only by setting those boundary statements. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm having a hard time with is in conversations, and I keep everything with one particular person all documented so that I can always go back and relook at the conversation. And I will say, please don't speak disrespectfully. This person might be cussing or saying things. And then that person will tell me they don't see that as disrespect. And so my boundary now is if I am asking, I will ask, like, please don't cuss at me. I will just tell that person I'm going to block them from my cell phone because I won't speak to them. But it's hard to deal with people that may not, I don't know if they're just trying to manipulate or if they don't see the same conversation that I'm seeing and it's disrespectful and they're telling me it's not disrespectful. So it's hard when it kind of becomes like clouded, but I'm just trying to stick with what like you said, what I feel. If I feel it's disrespectful, then I'm letting that person know that it's disrespectful to me.
Yeah, having that conversation, if you saying to the person, if you stop cussing at me, you can't have people stop cussing at you. I mean, that's their mouth. That's a boundary violation. You can't tell people not to talk. Now, if you cuss at me, I will block you. Now that's a boundary statement.
Yeah.
And so you tell them that if you cuss, if you can, I think it's disrespectful for you to talk to me like that. If you continue to talk to me like that, I will block you. What the
Yeah.
freak? Click.
Yep.
Yeah. You've told them and now
Yep.
you're acting on it. So now it comes the consequences of that you have to deal with. With the consequences, there's a transition that happens. The transition is this. The other person is mad because Who does she think she is? She's getting all new. Well, yeah, you are getting new. On your side, you're getting new, and change is hard. And adapting to the new change of respecting yourself, it's saying it like that doesn't sound bad, but when you're going through the emotions of respecting yourself, when you've been abused and abandoned and alone and cussed out of your life and all of this stuff, it's not going to feel normal. But your normal was wrong.
Yeah.
So it has to take some time for the new norm to begin to take hold.
Okay.
That's to be expected.
So, devil's advocate here. I feel like it seems as if why we're applying this grace to ourselves.
Mm.
Why can't we apply this grace to someone else? In the example of the cursing, like I've asked, I don't want to be spoken to that way. They curse. It seems counterintuitive if we're supposed to be giving people grace to just block them off the first go round. If this is Now, if this becomes a pattern of like, obviously 2 3 times later, I'm still having to have the same conversations with you, then I think that is a reasonable time to now block this person. But just like, you can't expect yourself to make these changes overnight. It seems unfair or unright or whatever the word is to ask that from another person.
Yeah, and from what Des said, she said she repeatedly told this person this. It wasn't the first offense. I was just going
That's
by
correct.
I was just going
Yeah.
by what she said. But yes, you do have to you okay, you 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 can, but I wouldn't recommend this. But the first offense, when the person doesn't even know that that's a boundary, and then you cut them off and they didn't even know what the problem was in the first place, that's not really the communication that has to happen. The first communication that has to happen is that you have to tell somebody what the boundary statement is. That way, because a person can't violate something that they don't know. And so you tell the person, I don't want you cussing at me. You tell them that. Remember, I don't want you cussing. And your threshold can be different. Mine could be five offenses. Dez's could be 2 offenses. I don't really know. But once that threshold has been set, because you'll say, okay, you continue to disrespect me after I've told you time and time again, if it happens one more time, I'm going to block you. You've had that conversation and the person hasn't changed. Maybe the person doesn't want to change. From what Des says, they don't even see it as a problem because it's not a problem for them. It doesn't really matter that it's a problem for her because it's not a problem for me. So therefore, I'm going to keep doing it because I don't see an issue with it. Well, when you have those relationships, particular if it's a close relationship, you want to have mutual respect for one another. It's not like a person in the street. I mean, I'm sure she's not talking to a stranger and say, "Look, stop cussing around me." Um, but in an intimate or closer relationship, you don't want to be talked to like that. So I would agree it's not on one offense. You do have grace. And I would even say it depends on, remember that circle. Because, I'm in prison and they're cussing up a storm. And they'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Charlene. I didn't mean to cuss." I said, "Well, it's your mouth. You do what you want." But now, if it's Amanda cussing at me, no, that's not going to work. If I'm in a relationship with someone and they're cussing me out, no, that's not going to work. So you have to. Boundaries are about those circles of relationship, or if you look at your house, if they're across the street from your house, that's outside of your area of interest, you can allow people to do things. So this boundaries are not all or nothing. That's how come you have to have your circles. And the closer they get into your circle, the more restrictive you become. I have a lot of grace for people that are across the street, in our analogy from the house, the people in prison. They cuss, they do all this stuff. But once you're coming in to Charlene, now the rules are going to change because it's different for me when it's an intimate relationship that we're trying to establish order and respect and godliness. It's just a different pattern. So that's how I would answer both, hopefully Des and Amanda. I see Letay's hand.
I just wanted to acknowledge that, there's a lot of fear associated with well, first of all, I was like asking God, well, what was that from? Me eating like that. And he said fear. And I thought that was weird because who eats when they're scared is what I said. I was like, God, who eats when they're scared? They usually scream or take off running or something. But then he showed me in the movie theater eating popcorn, watching the scary movie. And you know how you just keep going and you're feeding and so that was the example that he showed me. But I just wanted to acknowledge the fear that's associated with saying, hey, check this out. If you cuss at me again, I'm hanging up in your face. Or if you cuss at me again, I'm blocking you. Okay. Now, I know if I say this to anyone, or if I change my tone and I say, hey, that hurts my feelings. And if you cuss again, I'm going to have to let you go. It doesn't matter how nice you say it. The people that I'm dealing with, if I say that to them, they're going to say, BITCH, we can get off the phone right now. You don't have to ever talk to me again because these are the kind of people that I'm dealing with. These are the kind of demons that I'm trying to minister to. So there's a fear that comes for like Desiree was saying, standing your ground, so to speak, and saying, I'm not gonna be able to do this with you. You know what I'm saying? There's a fear that comes from that. And I just wanted to acknowledge that it is real, you know, and it's oftentimes that can be the end of a relationship over um what I deem as us trying to control this person. Because I see you saying you can't cuss around me as a form of control because what happened to freedom of speech? What happened to that? I don't know, but I don't know where it went out the window with. But there is such thing as freedom of speech. You can have all the boundaries you want. You're still gonna see racial slurs all across social media and everything, even with all your boundaries and stuff, because there's a freedom of speech. People are gonna say what they want to say. So I just didn't want to lose sight of that, lose sight of the mercy and stuff that I get shown, that I've been shown, even being on this line and saying curse words in the past. And then also I've condemned other people for saying them too. So I'm not gonna act blind to that. But I'm just saying I was personally a person, young person, I got put out of people's house because I couldn't stop cursing. When I tried to apologize to them, I said, oh, and then I say the F word. And I say, oh, and then I say the S word. So I had a really, really hard time with not cursing, and I got put out of people's house for it. So I know what that's like, even though you really didn't want to, curse like a truck driver or a sailor. It's just your common language. And I just don't want to, I don't know. I just feel like that's controlling for me to be like that. But I see what Apostle's saying about people across the street and the people that are coming in closer to you. And to me, that's like the least of my worries. Um, because it's different for me. So I've probably become more, you know, familiar. It's easier for me to hear because I hear that often. And so yeah, I just was feeling like, uh, you know, each person's boundaries are different, so I can't judge, but I just didn't want to lose a person based on them cussing all the time.
Well,
Because I'm a cusser, because I'm Peter. Let's get down to that. Because I am Peter. That's why.
well,
Okay?
the thing is that again, you treat people how you want to be treated. And if you want to be cussed at all the time, then that's not going to be a boundary for you. You know what I mean? That's not going to be your boundary. because maybe you don't mind it. I remember my ex-husband, Bo, is his best friend, and his mom and his family, they would cuss like sailors. Every time Bo would be cussing out his mom, the mom, and they would just be laughing. And I asked Irvin, I'm like, why do they talk like that? And he's like, that's just how it is. That's how it is in their family. That's just how they talk. And do I stop going around them because they're cussing all the time? No, I didn't stop going around them because they were cussing all the time. I didn't join in. But if I'm going to be around people that are cussing all the time and they're, doing stuff, then I just have to sit in that environment and not impose my boundary, particularly if I'm in their house, in their environment. I can't be telling people how to talk in their house. And so that's how come you have to have the realms, the levels, and enforce the levels accordingly to the person. And again, for me, ministry, unless I am discipling you to walk as a minister of the gospel, that type of ministry, if you're a minister and you cuss like a sailor, I'm not going to call you on it. But if I'm training you to be a minister, I'm going to call you on it. Remember, that's a realm. That's a level of boundary. If you're my kid, I don't want my kids cussing around me. That's just not respectful. I mean, but that was established when they were younger. And so again, you have to set the ring. Remember that ring where you have the outer circle and it comes all the way into bullseye. You can't go from level 7 to level 1. You have to set the boundary at each level. And it's going to take work because if you're unbound, you haven't had that experience to be able to do that. And this is what we're learning how to do now, to just take a realm and just begin to work on it. Will you lose friends? Yeah, maybe. I remember there was times it was either Amanda or Paige had said something. They asked me to do something, and I said, well, man, if I do this, I know they were asking for their dad. And I said, well, the dad is manipulating and using the kids to do it. And I don't want to deny it because the Amanda or Paige, whoever it was, will get mad at me. And I had to stand my ground because I didn't want to be taken advantage of. And I told the child, whichever one it was, no. And they were like, okay. They didn't even care. So my worst fear of them being mad at me for saying no, they didn't even give a rip. They were like, okay, well, I just asked, bye. You know, sometimes our fears are not even founded. It's just our own fear. We have to stand on our boundaries, regardless of the fear that it raises, because I was putting the response that they were going to give me, and they didn't even respond like that. And just imagine if I would have given in, how bad I would have felt. So you got to go through that. Okay, there's no more hands up, Dave.
Okay, I like the discussion, Apostle, what you're saying, because me going back home is going to put me in a totally different environment. So this boundary setting is good for me because it's going to be a total change. Because I got people that cuss and stuff like that. And who I'm going to let in that gate, like you said, the selling or something like that, you know what I'm saying, into that house and stuff like that. It's about me building totally different relationships. But yeah, this has been good, especially the thing about saying no, because that's been the hardest thing for me. No, you can't do it. And then accepting, them to grow, like you said, because they haven't heard you say the things, say no before, and they get upset. But learning them how to deal with it as you deal with it too. But it's been a blessing in my life, trying to build these boundaries. I thank everybody for what you're saying. And it helps me. If it didn't don't feel it helps you, it helps me. Because I walked around for a long time and it wasn't It's just a risk. To me, it was people pleasing. I just wanted to help people, and a lot of times, by me helping people, they depended on me to continue to do it again. So to me, it wasn't people pleasing. It was just I just wanted to be helpful. But this has been a blessing in my life too, to learn how to set boundaries and build things. And but yeah,
Did
thank
we
you.
talk about the abuse part already?
Now we can go. We did, but we can go back to it, Late.
No, it's okay. I had clicked over onto the other line. I was just going to talk about some toxicity where you normalize abuse. This was the part that I was going to add in there, and I had wrote it down that that one time when I was in a domestic violence relationship, this person then socked me, and then Valentine. This is how stupid. This is how we try to justify stuff. I bought them this gorilla. First of all, I bought them this gorilla that was had punching bags things. It was a singing gorilla, and it had mitts on. Mitts on, not punching bags, but mitts. I was a punching bag, but it had mitts on, and the song was "What is love, baby? Don't hurt me, don't hurt me no more." You guys remember that song? Oh, 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 oh. Well, my stupid self. Here I am getting beat up, and I try to make a joke out of it and bought them a gift. And I just thought, golly, how it was like our sister Teresa saying, know your worth. You know what I'm saying? How stupid can you be, to try to make a funny out of a horrible, horrible situation and how we try to justify it and make it into something else. It's just these kind of teachings take me back to that time, and I'm just so thankful I'm not there. Of course, we always got space to grow and stuff, but just thankful that I'm not moving in that way, and wanting to share how that to me is part of what our sister Wendy was calling the crazy cycle of just doing these things that you know not to do. You know you're not supposed to do it, but you allow it, and just kind of growing up and maturing and saying, I'm so much better than this. God has a purpose and a plan for me. It doesn't include this stuff. And I just wanted to say that I am, acknowledging that God has something better for me, and it doesn't have to be a new relationship. It could just be a new me and a new relationship, a renewed relationship with Him, instead of trying to find that in somebody else. That's I just wanted to share about the accepting abuse thing.
Yeah, thank you, Late. Because when you was talking about that, it took me back to the clinging to a person of dependency, where you seeking that affection, and if you was raised with getting hit or seeing your mama get hit, sometimes you adopt into that's love, and sometimes we do that and stuff like that. So yeah, that was great for me. And that, like I said, it unearthed some stuff in me going over this. I just couldn't see the part about boundaries. And then Amanda started saying sometimes you just got to sit and look and see how things are affecting you to set the boundaries. So this was a blessing in my life. And as we do this, we continue to grow into things that, protect us, and then, protect us from people that try to hurt us. So it's good. So if there's nothing else, Sharon, can I get you to pray us out?
Thank you, David, for your sharing of your teaching. It's a lot that I did not know about you and all this time that I've been in ministry with you. So thank you for sharing your heart openly. Father, we thank you tonight. Thank you for what has been shared in terms of looking at ourselves, looking to see what areas in our lives that we're not taking care of ourselves. We thank you for what David has shared about um, abuse, what he shared about, oh man, my mind just went blank, but
Abandonment.
abandonment. Yeah, thank you. Um, and just the different relationships that we find ourselves in, Father. And so we thank you for all the teachings that have transpired over this year, and continuing to learn how to be a better self version of ourselves by um, finding worth in who you created us to be, and respecting ourselves and valuing that which you created us to be, and setting those healthy boundaries, so that we can be healthy um, vessels and workers and servants. And so we thank you tonight. We pray for each and every person under the sound of my voice, those that are not here, that are part of the class, that we, when they receive the recordings, that we will just take the information that's been given to us and just do, again, the individual assessments that we need to do, and seeking you and what's true, what is our true self, and what boundaries that we're setting for ourselves, and then giving us the strength to enforce those boundaries, and not allow anything else to break those boundaries or to move those boundaries because of ill feelings or emotions. And so we thank you tonight for what you're doing in us and sharpening us and making us stronger and better people that will glorify you. So we thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Des
Amen.
is up next week, so let's keep her in prayer. Good job, Dave.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you,
Amen.
Dave.